Hi everyone, I'm Laurie and I'm an alcoholic. I have a sobriety date. It's March 7th of 1992 and really grateful for that. Still get choked up when I think about it. Welcome to the new people and happy birthday to our birthday folks. You know, I hope you hear something in this meeting tonight that brings you back. I wanted to say thank you to the committee and thank you to Troy for putting this together. And I have to be honest, when he called, my first thought was, I think I'm out of town that weekend. But then my AA sponsorship kicked in, and the word always comes out yes, even though I mean no. Anyway, it's an honor to be here, and thank you. Well, they left our other speakers. I appreciated the story on the concept. That was great. And Angie, it was nice to hear a little bit about your story as well. So what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. What time do we have? 8:10. Yeah, I am a lot like Angie. Alcohol worked. I found it at 15 years old. That was my first drink. And it took away all those inhibitions. You know, I think I came out of the cradle insecure, neurotic, emotional, fearful, you know, and as a little kid I was kind of scattered. And I was the baby of 4 other siblings and kind of got lost in the shuffle. And didn't get hurt a lot of times, so therefore I'm very sensitive. You got to listen to me. Ask my husband. Anyway, so I had all those traits to start off, and I was raised in a family with, you know, some pretty rowdy siblings, and got to observe a lot, and got to observe their behavior, and a lot of times, you know, it looked like it was fun. So finally at 15, I had my first glass of wine, and I remember it going down, and I remember getting this, and I could kind of breathe, and I ended up having one more glass of wine that night, and I was able to stand up to my dad. You know, I told him how I felt and all that stuff, and so I was kind of off and running, and it wasn't a daily episode. You know, it was a little bit few and far between in the beginning stages, but, you know, it got a little bit heavier as I got older, and did a couple of geographic moves. Had moved from Salt Lake City to Southern California to Dallas, Texas. And I tried to blame those moves on my alcoholism, but today in sobriety, I know that I'm an alcoholic. I'm a real alcoholic. The doctor's opinion, I love that, Troy. Thanks for sharing that. The doctor's opinion really summed it up for me. And if you're still trying to consider whether or not you're an alcoholic, that's a great chapter to read. Because it talks about the physical and mental obsession, and it talks about the manifestation of craving that happens once you have that drink. And I didn't pay close attention to that, but you know, a couple of years before I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, things started to get a little bit weird for me, and I had started to get into a little bit of trouble here and there, you know, wrecking the car and Dad covering up for it. And, you know, back in the day, you could get away with so much more. I feel so bad for all you young kids now. But, you know, there was a lot of stuff that was happening that would have led others to believe I was an alcoholic, but I didn't see it yet. So ended up having 2 little children, was in a marriage, and thought the white picket fence and the baby would make me better. And that ended up not working, and the marriage ended up not working as well. So left to my own devices, had the 2 children, and started to kind of have to come to terms that it wasn't everybody else's fault anymore, that it might just be me. And ended up having to look in the mirror with those things. And, you know, in February of 91, I ended up getting a DUI, and I had a brother that is a year more sober than me, and I worked in the same office as he did, and I used to drink with him. He was a real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and he was perfect to be around because his alcoholism looked so much worse than mine. And had family members, the same thing. They all drank, but his was really bad. I think he ended up coming into Alcoholics Anonymous after 7 DUIs. So it was really bad. And I'd come into work, and I'd ask if he wanted to go have a drink at noon, because that's what I thought people did. I was in sales. And I loved what our concept speaker talked about. I've always had my own business so that I could be the majority and not have to listen to anybody else. So it was a family business, and I'd say, hey, I got a couple of cells, this morning. Would you like to go have a drink? And he had this blue book in his hand, and he'd walk around the office, and he goes, no, I don't want to have a drink. And asked him a few different times, and finally he looked at me, and he goes, I don't know if you've noticed, Laurie, but I don't drink anymore. And I go, you don't? Wow. I said, I'm really happy, and I'm careful these days, but gosh, that's too bad for you. And he said, yeah, I found this place called Alcoholics Anonymous. And, it's really, I had a problem, and things are getting better for me. And that was his message. That's all he said. So I ended up getting this DUI, and I had my little boy, my 3-year-old, was asleep on my lap, and I'd gotten pulled over, and I was .28. And I shouldn't be alive today, and that little boy shouldn't be alive today. But by the grace of God, I guess, we both made it. And I ended up getting arrested. Anyway, the truck had been wrecked a little bit, and so they had towed the truck away, and so I ended up a couple of days later, after I'd come to a bit, ended up going into work, and sitting on my desk was a blue book, and it said on the front cover, in the inside cover, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Love, Phil. And that was my Eskimo message. And I had a couple of friends left, not very many. Most of them were male. And there was a gentleman that had been coming to the meetings here. His name was Ron Platts, and he's passed away, so I can say his name. But he had been going to the meetings, and a friend of mine had said, why don't you call Ron? I think he goes to this NA thing or something. And so he had ended up calling me and asked if I wanted to go to lunch. And I said, yeah, that would be great. So he picked me up, and I was looking hip, slick, and cool, and thought I was going to the oyster bar for lunch, and he ended up pulling me up in front of the Alano Club. And I said, well, I thought we were having lunch. What are we doing here? And he goes, I'm taking you to a very special place. And I went in, and that was my first meeting. And so I sobered up at the Alano Club here in Salt Lake, and I was pretty crazy by 12 o'clock, so I sobered up in the 12 o'clock meetings. I needed something by that time. That was my drinking time, really. And so ended up going to what the group back then was called the Fresh Air Group. And back in the day, we could smoke at meetings. I mean, so many things have changed. So they had the smoking meeting over here, and then they had the Fresh Air Group. And I was telling Mike at dinner tonight that I smoked, but I went to the Fresh Air meeting because I thought it looked better. Who cares? You're in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. But I'll tell you, I still remember what was shared in that meeting. And I don't know if it's a girl thing, but I still remember what I wore to my first meeting, too. Anyway, so, the old-timers were sharing in there, and they said, if you've got a problem with alcohol, hit your knees. What do you got to lose? Ask for that obsession to be removed and see what happens. And I heard other things like a drug is a drug is a drug. If you're not using the one that you love, eventually it's going to take you back to the one that'll kill you. And I, heard all of this fancy language. But one thing that I did notice in that meeting were the people's eyes. And they were bright. And they looked happy. And they'd get up and share these stories, that were things I was taking to my grave, and they'd smile and laugh. And so there was something attractive about those meetings. And again, that was February of 91, so it took me a minute. And I was like Angie. I was going to get all the information that I needed and work on some of the trauma, and I was going to be fine. And so self-knowledge gets you nowhere. The book tells us that. If you truly are an alcoholic, you can work on all that stuff you want to, but, at the end of the day, you're going to drink again. And so I went back out and tried to control and enjoy my using. I knew that alcohol was going to kill me. It was pretty evident that that was going to happen. So I thought it would be okay to just dabble in other areas. So I dabbled. And on March 6th of 92, I was dabbling and had my last girlfriend and her boyfriend in the house with me, and he was drinking Budweiser. And I reached over and had my hand around his Budweiser beer, and all of a sudden, all the stuff in the meetings came back to me, and I went, I'm in trouble. And I asked them to leave the house. I went downstairs to my bedroom. I shouldn't have slept that night, and I ended up sleeping, and I hit my knees, and I asked for all of the obsession, for all of them to be removed. Woke up the next day and called one of my friends that I had been going in and out of meetings with. His name was Bill W. He's still here, and he's still sober. And I said, Bill, I have to tell you, I haven't been honest. And he goes, I know. And I'm like, how do you guys always know stuff? Anyway, and I said, I need a meeting. And he said, I'm on my way. And you know what? That's what I found in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's for fun and for free. And I didn't know what that was, because back in the day, there was a payoff, for everything. And it took a while to find out that you guys were real, and that you were here to carry the message, because in order for you to stay sober, you wanted to give that message back. And what a beautiful gift we all have, to be here in Alcoholics Anonymous and to have that opportunity to change the way that we see things and the way that we do things. And so I was able to get honest at that point, and the cotton came out of my ears, and it was stuck in my mouth for a minute, and I got to listen. And I met some incredible women. I have had 4 sponsors that have been amazing in my life. I have not gone a day without a sponsor. I don't recommend doing that. It's really important that you find somebody, again, that has what you want, but is also vested in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I could have stayed around here and just flailed a lot without those steps. But what those steps did is they gave me a center. They gave me a foundation. They gave me a power greater than myself that will solve all my problems today. And I have a really big life today. I really do. Ended up raising 4 boys in Alcoholics Anonymous. They're incredible. Had 2 of them over last night. Our youngest is 25 years old. And we had a birthday party, and they actually like being around me. And they like call and say, I love you, and those things. So, if you've got kids and you want an opportunity to raise them in a good, orderly direction, Alcoholics Anonymous is a great foundation. I ended up marrying a man in Alcoholics Anonymous, and he always likes to remind me he's got more time than me. But, we've had a sober house. And we've done a lot of service, and those kids have seen us do service. They've seen women come over and me do step work with them. They've seen men come over with my husband and do step work. And what a beautiful thing, to see us giving something back. It's allowed them to be in a service mentality as they've grown older. And, that big life that I have a lot of disciplines that I have to do because of that big life. And I don't get a break from Alcoholics Anonymous. The book says it's a daily reprieve contingent upon the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Every day is the day where I must carry the message of God's will into all of my activities. How can I best serve thee? Not my will, your will. And so I start my day that way. And 10 and 11 and 12, those steps have been huge for me, and I have to stay vested in those. And step 10 is continue to take personal inventory, and when we're wrong, we promptly admit it. A lot of times I might not have an apology to make, but that personal inventory is looking around. I may be in a business setting, and somebody might throw me off a little bit, and all of a sudden that insecurity comes out or whatever. That's a personal inventory. I need to look at that and say, why did that just throw me? What does that remind me of? Where is that coming from? And in that way, if I'm able to look at those things, I'm better able to serve you guys, because By about, 8:30 in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting phone calls, and I'm of service. And I've got lots of areas where I'm around a lot of people. And if I was an a-hole, it would not serve anybody well. So it's important for me to get on track so that I can help you guys and carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous in a good way. I don't want to be driving down the road, flipping somebody off and have them be a member of AA, right? Anyway, it just looks better. Again, I'm really grateful to be here, and I'm so honored to be in the class of 92 with the other two gentlemen that we'll be sharing. We have history together. Jerry and I, Ted, we talk a lot. He does a lot of service for me. I have a rock and gem company, and he shows up and helps carry rocks for me and set up and that sort of thing. And Rusty and I go way back. We've got connections with the Haven, which is a treatment center here in Utah. And just really grateful to be sober and honored to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Thanks.
Troy let me loose. He turned me up here on my own. I'm Rusty. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is March the 12th, 1992. So I was incredibly blessed to have that sobriety date because I immediately had a hero that was 5 days sober longer than I was, and so I had somebody that I could watch. Our paths kept crossing, different meetings. We would get chips together. We would celebrate our birthdays together and show up at different meetings and so forth. And we were all involved in service at the Haven Treatment Center for years, and it's been an incredible blessing. And then I met Jerry somewhere down the road. I can't recall exactly how long it's been, but it's been over 25, I think, years. So if you want to have a pretty good start on sobriety, find a hero. Get a hero. Somebody that you can follow, somebody that's doing the work, somebody that's showing up, somebody that's paying attention, somebody that's telling the truth. All those three things which Andy taught me. Andy taught me by showing me that. So I am in awe of this program. On a daily basis. I just can't believe it sometimes. I was born in northern Utah, and on a farm, a small irrigated farm. I was born into a Mormon family, which was the only game in town, in a farm town in northern Utah. And we're not allowed to use Mormon anymore. I guess we can't call it that, but I still do. Sorry. That's one of my old ideas I'm trying to let go of. But I gotta move this a little bit. Oh, just pull it.
There you go.
Yeah,
is that better?
Yeah, that's a little better. I had to kind of bend over there, and I didn't want to do that. God forbid, don't make me do something I don't want to do. I'm an alcoholic, So anyway, I was born on this farm, and I had a little bit of talent. I had a good singing voice, and my mother noticed that right away, and so she put me on display right away. I think. The first thing I did is performed in church. Then I learned how to walk. After that, and then I started talking. So, I was early on, and I did a lot of that for quite a long time. So I loved the stage. I loved the attention. I loved the applause. I got a thrill out of that. I had a little bit of talent, so I was asked around a lot, and for years I did that. And of course, a lot of church things, but I was in the a cappella choir in high school, and we went on a tour, and so that was part of it. That was part of my music world, and I loved it. I also had another thing that when I was little, I contracted a disease called rheumatic fever, which gave me a little bit of a heart murmur, and it was kind of a scary kind of disease at that time. My sister also contracted it. She spent a year in bed because of that. Wasn't allowed to go to school or anything. I had a case of it that would flare up and be bad, and things would happen, and it knocked me down for a week, and then I'd be back up. But the problem that caused was I wasn't able to work on the farm as much, and so I formed an opinion right then that there was something wrong with me, that I wasn't good enough, that I wanted to be like my dad. My dad was a farmer, and he was strong, and he was honest. Honest, I didn't get that one. But he was a little bit of the black sheep in his family. He smoked and he gambled, but he was a hard-working farmer, and he was honest. We always knew where he was. We always knew what he was doing. My mother knew, and he provided for the family and did well that way. But I beat up on myself for a long time for not being strong enough to really work the farm hard like he did, and it caused me some problems to have that kind of an opinion of myself. My mother took the other side of it and threw me on display every chance she got, and took credit for it, pushed me off to the side, and I'm over there. I'm the one that sang. What about me? Where's mine? Where's mine? And so I basically had developed a resentment against my mother, for that. She was taking my glory away, But at the age of 14, I discovered the miracle. The miracle happened. The reason I even mentioned my singing is that I had worked on a project to sing the Lord's Prayer, the solo at the FFA National Convention in Kansas City. And I worked on that I worked hard on that. I had a vocal instructor and so forth. So at 14 years old, I headed with a bunch of other 14-year-olds, and we had some 18-year-old chaperones and a couple of adults, and we hopped on a train and headed to Kansas City for the National Convention. Future Farmers of America is what that FFA stands for. So anyway, we're headed there, and at the border of Wyoming, they opened a club car, and a club car on a train was a bar on wheels. That's basically what it was. So all the way from the Wyoming border to Kansas City, most of us spent the time in the club car. Drank all the way there, Got in Kansas City, and within 2 hours we had the police showing up because we're throwing water buckets out of the 5-story windows and shit, Bunch of farm kids from Utah causing trouble. But in that club car, I don't know whether I said it, but I knew that I formed the opinion that I could control my drinking because everybody else was really getting sloppy, and I wasn't. In my, you know how that goes. But anyway, I formed that opinion. I could control my drinking, and I learned after I'd gotten in AA for a while, and I heard a speaker say, if you've ever heard someone say, I can control my drinking, you're hearing an alcoholic. Non-alcoholics don't say that. They don't need to control their drinking. They have 1.5 and go home. You know, then they show up for work the next day. And they'll do that 2 or 3 days in a row. It's amazing. I don't, you know, how the hell that happens. But anyway, in forming that opinion and having that experience, I spent the next 38 years of my life trying to prove that I could control my drinking. And I also was a smoker. You know, I was a dedicated smoker, you know, along with that drinking. So I was basically a walking toxic waste dump, you know. You know, in Kansas City, you probably have already figured this out. That thing that I practiced to do, to sing the Lord's Prayer at the big event in Kansas City, I did not show up for that. Instead, I was in a strip joint down the block. Yeah. For most of the heavy-duty gunner guys in the blue jackets were in that strip joint, and none of them were 21. You know, and it right on the door it says no one under 21 admitted, and out above that was a big banner that said "Welcome FFA." Figure that one out. Anyway. Yeah, that was the trip, and I lied about why I couldn't make it to that rehearsal and so forth. And I lied, and I had gotten sick, and I was really, you know, and all the things we do. The one thing that I did learn about alcoholism in the way is that in order to maintain that, you have to be a liar and a cheat and a thief, and you have to do that or you will not be a good practicing alcoholic. You just won't last. You know, just ain't going to happen. So I learned that. I graduated from high school with, one thing I did when I was growing up is I started to live the two lives. Like we do. In the daytime, I was a good student, and I went to school. I loved it. I loved school. I went there. I was a class officer and president of the acapella, and a bunch of things like that. But I loved school. I loved the dances and that. I sang in a lot of assemblies and so forth. And at night, I ran with the bad crowd. Of course I did. What else was I going to do? You know, and so I led that double life for that long, for all the while through high school. I graduated, and everything was great. As far as that goes, I came down to the U. I wanted to go to a different college. My mother wanted me to go to BYU. I would no way in the world I was going to get near that place. And so I split the difference with her, and I went to the U, which I hated, but right away I figured out how I was going to survive that, and I joined a fraternity. And so I came down for Pledge Week, you know, or whatever they call it, Rush Week, yeah. Anyway, and I got in a fraternity, which was absolutely the worst thing in the world I could do for me. And I heard myself described on a speaker tape sometime later, after I'd gotten in the program, and the description given was a guy said he was going to a university, And at any given moment, his grade point average was lower than his blood alcohol level. So that was me. I heard that, and that was me. That's the way. I drank myself out of the U at about a year and a half, and they still consider me an alumni. I don't know why that is. Anyway, that's way back in the past. The last time, well, I got married. We had 3 children. She raised them. I was never available emotionally or mentally. My total focus in life, I did a lot of things. I was involved. I was never shy about being involved. I was always in something, and I did a lot of volunteering, and I did coaching. I coached little leagues and basketball and baseball and all of that. And I played golf and bowled, and yeah, I was active. I fished and hunted. What happened with my drinking is all that stuff started to disappear, and my drinking started to take the place of all of that. It used to be that I'd go on a fishing trip and we'd have a drink. It got to the point where let's go drink, we'll bring a fishing pole. The guys I had drank with, the normal comment would say, let's go get drunk and be somebody. That's the kind of people I drank with and so forth. Anyway, I had success in some of those things, and bowling and golf and all that. So it was, I had so much fun it almost killed me. But it got to the point where I had to drink. I could not get by without it. And I was first introduced to, I better get sober here. I got introduced to AA in 1987. I was taken there by a mental health counselor. I was ordered by a judge. It was my 3rd DUI, and I was ordered to go there. She took me to met me at my first meeting. She was 13 years sober in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, so she knew about it. And she was a great lady, wonderful person, terrific. I went to a meeting. She took me to a meeting out in Bountiful, and I went to 6 meetings there. And we get somebody to fall down there. Anyway, all right? Okay. Okay. Okay, that's, I went to those 6 meetings there, and they didn't cure me. Actually, I separated myself in those meetings. I looked at them and I thought they're way too old. I'm too young. I'm a lot better than all this. And it was a good little group. It was a good sober group, but the seed was planted, and it's a good thing it was, because I needed that seed planted. I stayed sober for a year and a half because of circumstances, and a year and a half later, I crawled back into Alcoholics Anonymous, and I literally crawled in here and asked for help. I had a guy take 2 days off of his work and 12-step me, and they told me to turn myself in at Fellowship Hall, and I did, and that was March the 12th. And I haven't drank since. It was at that point that I got introduced to the people that we know that we're going to hear from Jerry now in a minute. But I started to get introduced to the right people at exactly the right times, and I got involved with that. The Haven, I got involved with the Haven, but I'm telling you, my first few years sober, I listened to a lot of speaker tapes. A lot of them. I'd go to sleep at night listening to speaker tapes. And I swamped my mind with speaker tapes. I went to 3 and 4 meetings a day, and I'm not exaggerating, I did that. I did 3 and 4 meetings a day. And when you don't have a car, it becomes quite tricky to get to 3 and 4 meetings a day, because I didn't have a car for a year and a half. And UTA was my higher power. and it always got me there. You know, I'd leave at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. I'd get home at midnight, after midnight, sometimes 12:30. I went back to work, and we started what became my home group. 5 days a week at noon, and I started to meet the people in that group that were old-timers doing AA, service, helping people, staying sober, and finding a higher power, all of the things, you know. And I started to pick up all of these sayings that all these old timers have and so forth, and I started to utilize them. I got a sponsor that was on top of things with me, and he would say, never start a sentence with why with me, because I will not talk to you. He says, you start it with how, and I'll talk to you. You know, he says, I'm not worried about how you're feeling. I'm wondering what you're doing. You know, and we're going to do this together, and we're going to incorporate the steps into your life and start living them. And so I've experienced the 12 steps. I've experienced those in my life. And I do it on a daily basis. I volunteer a day and a half a week at Central Office, which is the focal point of AA in this area for information. You know, we maintain the meeting schedule, we get the phone calls, we get people the help that they hope they need, and I'm involved with that. I'm on the board there, but that doesn't mean much. What means to me is that day and a half that I work that front office and meet people and talk to them on the phone and help that way. And you know, I'm blessed to be standing here. Trust me on that one. I dodged a lot of bullets. I dodged a lot of other things. My sobriety changed at 10 years sober when I had open heart surgery. Because of my lifestyle, I had a series of heart attacks in 2002. And I had open heart surgery in Christmas, just before Christmas, the 19th of December in 2002, and I was in the hospital 10 days. While I was in the hospital, I discovered what was wrong with me, alcoholism. I had been living that 10 years sober here, and I was having a lot of fun in this program. It was the roaring 90s in AA in Salt Lake. Yeah, class of 92 and the other 90s, it was a roaring time. There was dances and retreats and seminars, and we were having a lot of fun. A lot of fun. And I lived all of that. I lived all of that fun, you know, and in 2002, I had an event that made me stop for a minute and evaluate things. And I discovered the doctor's opinion, found out that since I was about 2 years old, I had been restless, irritable, and discontent. And I did not have a way to deal with that until I found alcohol and, you know, smoking in there too. But I found a way to deal with that restless, irritable, discontent for almost 40 years, and I almost died because of it. Now I've found a different way to deal with that. You know, when I'm sober, I can get restless, irritable, discontent. And I also can get long-winded, and somebody says I ought to start my own program called On and On. So I'm not going to go any more on. And we're going to listen to my old friend. Well, longtime friend, I won't call you old, Jerry.
I'm Jerry. I'm an alcoholic. So what a thrill to go after all of these guys. Two warm-up speakers, they call them, and they got this place really rocking. Good job, Angie, Mike. And always love to hear Laurie. I was talking to her at dinner, and I said, we could just switch. I could tell your story, and you could tell mine. And she goes, no, don't be silly, Jerry. Me, be silly. Good to hear from Rusty. Booze, always a big part of my life. I was a baby drinker. I actually remember my first hot toddy. It was, I don't know how old, 4 or 5. I had that baby in my little hands, and I remember, there was a big discussion as to whether or not to put the rocket fuel in between my mom and Dad won out. My dad died sober in Alcoholics Anonymous in 1987 with 20 years, but he wasn't in AA back in 1955, and I had this baby, and I had that thing, and I was a little bit nervous about it. I took a little sip, and it's, tea and honey and lemon and whiskey, and I go, and I remember that feeling. It just went kaboom. And I went, can I have another? And I got another one with no rocket fuel in it. So my mom won out on the second one, and I had to go to the bathroom a lot after that. But I felt better. So booze was always a huge thing in my life, and I don't know what the hell. I was in 6th grade. I brought in 2 vials of clear stuff up from my dad's liquor, and recess. Got in with a couple of other guys, and I went out on the playground, and I was something like I was proud of it or something, and I was trying to breathe on the little girls to let them know that I'd been drinking. Hi. And they just ran away like 6th grade girls would do but there was something. It's kind of like, don't you know, if you had what I had, you'd be so happy. I wish everyone could be like me. And that's how. And as an altar boy, the altar wine, there were much better places to find booze than the altar wine. That crap was awful. And but I tried it. I was kind of so. I had the booze. I had the moral thing with the girls. That never turned out too good. It got a lot weirder as I got older. And then I was, we talk about being a thief. I was an altar boy, and then me and this other kid would sneak into the church, and we found out that you could get the money out of the places where the people were putting the money in for their saints and stuff. And I'm going, whoa. And at 14, I went, I don't know what the deal is with God, but if it's this Catholic stuff, I'm screwed. And it's like, if I'm going to hell, I might as well go do some of the stuff I want to do. And my life looked like that in our book. It says we're very much the actor, want to run the whole show. We can be nice and good. I figured out that you just can't be total, everything for me and let everybody know about it. You have to be a little bit more, sneaky about it. It's like, oh yeah, I'll help out. What's the pay? What am I going to hear? Get a pat on the head. I'm a good guy. Trust me. And that's how I ran my life. A producer of chaos. I loved chaos. Return me to sanity. I wanted to be crazy. Why? That's why you drink. I mean, really? I've been working all day. This is my reward. Give me 2, And then it wasn't always, like fancy drinking. There were times when I'd be closing down the bar and, making sure there weren't cigarette butts and clearing everybody else's drink off. Oh, ice melted in that one. Whoa, that one's pretty good. And so I had a drinking career. By the time, I was talking to a guy the other day. I dodged the draft by going into a place called the Air Force Academy. And I remember we used to march into the field at the football games, and they'd say, now America's finest, The U.S. Air Force Academy Cadet Squadron, boom, boom, and they'd have drums, and I'd be marching, and I'm going, oh my God, if I'm the finest in America, we're screwed. And I went to an all-boys Jesuit school. Horrible time of your life to be in an all-boys school. And then I go to the Air Force Academy, all boys back then. And I'm going nuts. But, and booze would help a little bit, but you'd get out on one Saturday night, twice a semester, overnight. And you're supposed to get a car, you could rent one, get drunk, and find a girl all in this short period of time, and then have to be back on base in your uniform the next day. And it was really tough, so I quit it my sophomore year. So I went through the hardest part of the Air Force Academy, your freshman year, and quit when it started getting easier. And I went from, and I just wanted to be a hippie really bad, and I went from being the finest of America had to offer, marching through that porthole, to painting the garbage cans at Luke Air Force Base in Phoenix, Arizona. Long hair, getting that greasy paint in my hair. I love this lifestyle. And all about me. My generation, by the way, is called the me generation. And that was me. So finally, a kid came along, and I did this girl a huge favor by marrying her. And a couple more kids come along, and I find a real job. And I'm just a daily drinker. And I never really wanted to stop. Some days I would think maybe I'm not going to drink as bad. I might maybe I'll take it easy. Sometimes I'd go home and just have 3 or 4 cocktails, not drinks, cocktails, and then just go to bed. Other times, you just never knew what was going to happen. Sometimes I could get drunk on 2 drinks, and sometimes I couldn't get drunk on 10. And my last drunk was March 27th, 1992. And for some reason, a guy had bought me a bottle of 151 rum from the Caribbean, and I had it sitting by my desk the whole week, and I begged these guys, let's go out and drink this. And I don't know why drinking that much 151 was a good idea that night, but that's what I did. And that culminated in, it was at the Maverick. Big time guy, big spender, businessman, and Wolf of State Street. There you go. And was real drunk. Ran into my fence. Got the last fender on my little pickup truck. And my wife said, "Hon, you go get me some cigarettes?" And I said, "Sure." I was a happy drunk. If I had my booze, I'm pretty contented. And my daughter says, 8 years old at the time, "Dad, can I go with you?" And hell, I'm a good dad. Sure. "Can Rachel go with us?" My neighbor's 8-year-old daughter. Heck yeah. "Well, we ought to take Brogan too." My 4-year-old son, he was in the back of the pickup with it, but had a camper shell, so he's safe. And I had no idea that was a horrible thing to do. I didn't know it was a horrible thing to do till I was about somewhere between 5 and 10 years sober. And it's like, my God. Drunk driving's bad enough. I heard someone say, "Yeah, I was willing to kill you." I was willing to kill my kids. Jesus. And it was just normal. It's sad. And I never had a desire to stop drinking. And something happened that next day. And I don't know if it was alcohol poisoning or spiritual experience, a moment of clarity, I don't know what the hell it was. It was different. I did see a movie reel of my drinking career, kind of like I'm half dead. I didn't see all the, fun things like, playing football and everything. But, a thought hit me. So I wonder what life would be like without booze in it. And I kind of shook that thought off. More stuff. And then it's like, well, booze has been costing me a lot of money. And it's like, yeah, it's always had a price to pay. And I've always been willing to pay, but it wants more. As a matter of fact, I think it wants everything. And that was kind of a sobering thought. And I said, well, if I'm going to quit booze, I'm going to quit cigarettes. And I'm also I had a real immoral life, whether it was on any avenue you want to put it on. And I thought, well, I'm going to be moral again. I'll start, I'm going to clean up. I'll actually maybe even try to be a real husband. And And I thought I could do it. And I walked into the kitchen. I looked down. I had a cigarette lit in my hand. I said, buddy, you failed on the cigarette. And the thought hit me. And I actually said, buddy, to myself. I said, buddy, you're not going to make it on the booze deal alone. God, I wish I could remember that. I always tried doing it alone, even today. Forget the group. It's me. No, Jerry, you need help. And through the group comes this thing called a higher power. And you can take advantage of it if you want, but don't let us force you into anything. And so I got into AA, loved it. It was a party without booze. Started going to bunches of meetings and not real high motives. And I found this group of guys, and you might want to call them the God Squad. It's the guys that are, doing things different. God Squad's a pejorative in AA, by the way, but, it saved my ass. And they were reading the book, and they were trying to do this, help each other do this stuff in the book. And it was, I got in with those guys, and I finally asked a guy to sponsor me, and he said, good, we'll do it my way. And I was just about ready to tell him what I needed with my fourth step because I was ready to go there. And the best thing I ever said in my life in AA was, okay. He would ask me to do stuff. Are you willing to go to any lengths? I said, I think so. Well, you're supposed to say yes. And I go, well, I think I'll say yes. And I got little tests. I'd be tested on pretty much a daily basis. We did extra stuff. It's pretty much out of the book, but it seemed like other people weren't doing it. But this is what we were doing. And I remember he would ask me, hey, we're going to go over to Tom's house, and he's building a fence. You want to go? And I go, maybe. And he goes, no, it's a yes or no question. I'm going, oh, well, no. And he goes, we're all going. Aren't you willing? I said, I don't know anything about fences. He says, we're just going to carry boards around. He's doing the fence work. And I'm going, okay. And I'd go into these things with this guy, and it would be maybe, no, maybe, yes, no. And it would always turn out to be yes. And so at some point, I just said, I'm just going to start saying yes. And my God, I wish I still had that willingness to just say yes. It was best. It was really good. It took a lot of crap away. I was in the middle of I was separated for like 3 years. And after doing the steps, I said, hey, I met a girl today. I was bragging to my sponsor. And he said, whoa, wait a second. I didn't hear about your divorce. And I said, yeah, well, I'm separated, and she's dating guys. And he goes, no. Are you married? Yes, technically. And he goes, do married guys date? I see where this is going. He gave me a break on that one. He says, I've already taken it up the line to his sponsor. And he said, you don't get the date. I go, what the fuck? Why am I listening to these people? This is like the Air Force Academy. And I got through the steps. I had an experience. The steps, if there's anything I learned today is the steps are God-driven, God-given experience. You got to have, it's your own experience. Everybody does them different. The God part is so weird and hard to find. It's just, and after a while, it's always in this hindsight almost. It gets a little closer from hindsight as you get older. Spiritual growth at between 20 and 25 is crazy. 25 to 30. I had a 10th step where I drove so poorly and put everyone at risk coming down Parley's Way that I woke up the next morning and I was ashamed of myself. And guilt is horrible and it's stupid, but shamed at 25 years sober, it's like, Jesus, what if someone from AA would have seen me? And I did a 10th step on it, and I actually, having experience in the steps in your life, and then that's when the God thing comes in from somewhere. It seems to me all I have to do is be sincere and be willing and not have any other solution. And it hit me. It's like, you're going to drive the speed limit. How long? I don't know. Till you learned a lesson, I guess. I went for a year driving the speed limit. Have you ever been in a 35-mile-an-hour zone at 11 o'clock at night when there's not another car around? And when I got pissed off for driving the speed limit, I said, and you got to do it with a smile on your face. And every time you go effing speed limit again, it's gratitude. What a year. It was a great year. And there's a million opportunities. I've got so much room for spiritual growth. It's going to last me a lifetime. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Laurie, Rusty, and Jerry. That's great. Please clean up after yourselves and stick around so we can get to know you better. If you'd like to make this group your home group, please see Ben. If you don't have